Hello, my name is Bill Connor, and I'm running for Lieutenant Governor. You know, I've spent the last 3 months driving around the state, talking to various South Carolinians about problems in the state. I've put almost 25,000 miles on my car because I knew I needed to get out. Because I know that the bottom line is I am the ultimate outsider. I realize that. My family business was defending this state and nation. My father, grandfather, and great-grandfather were all career Army officers from South Carolina. In fact, I grew up as a military brat from South Carolina. And I knew a question on some people's minds might be, who is this guy running for office for the first time at the state level? And of course, Mark Sanford and Jim DeMint both received some of the same questions when they ran for Congress and did a pretty good job, but I think it's important to give you some background. I finished the Citadel almost 20 years ago, and since that time, I've been an Army infantry officer in various different jobs. I've been a commanding officer of Rangers, commanding officer of light infantry. I've deployed to the Middle East 3 times. And something else I've been too is an executive officer. An executive officer is a second in command of unit. I've also been a joint operations officer. And one of the ways too that this background will pay off if I'm elected to Lieutenant Governor is Lieutenant Governor has got to be a good second in command. I have done that throughout my military career. At age 34, to settle my family down in South Carolina, I went to the USC School of Law and went to the reserve component military. I'm actually a reserve lieutenant colonel this day. But you know, that first year of law school was my time that God brought me to my knees and I became a born-again Christian. And that was almost 7 years ago. I went on to graduate law school. In the last 3 or 4 years, I've been defending businesses in South Carolina. I would say too, my knowledge of the laws and constitution of this state will pay dividends if I'm elected, because Lieutenant Governor presides over the Senate and must take different sets of laws, legislation, and understand. And I've got that background, which would be a big help. I've got a wife of 18 years who herself is a small business owner. She's an OBGYN with her own practice, and I've got 3 children. I'm also the board chairman of a low tuition Christian school in South Carolina. And that job has really given me insight into the education issue, which is so high on priority as far as issues in the state. I've seen what it's like to educate children around near the corridor of shame, the so-called corridor of shame, and the issues involved in that. And I know we must make changes and give parents options if we're to start moving forward in education. So why am I running? Well, you go back just a couple of years, South Carolina's 218th Infantry Brigade was called up for combat service in Afghanistan. I was not in the 218th, but I felt called to volunteer, and I did volunteer my services to go over to Afghanistan. I was away from home for 15 months. I think it's important to keep that in mind, because the same call I had to volunteer for Afghanistan is the same call I had to run for office the first time at age 41. I'm not doing it for myself. It's about a higher cause. With Afghanistan, I got over to Afghanistan. What I saw there was something absolutely amazing. I saw young men and women sent out in small teams to remote bases. I was the senior advisor to Helmand Province, one of the largest, most violent provinces in Afghanistan. And these teams went out, and through hard work, through initiative, through ingenuity, despite being well under strength and undermanned because of surge in Iraq, they got the mission done. What I saw was the strength of America. How does that relate to South Carolina? Well, since I've come home to my wonderful wife and kids, I've seen so many look to government as the answer to all problems. Looking to government, frankly, is God. And that's not what our country's all about. Friends, government is not the answer. Freedom is the answer. But government seeks to become too big and to spread the wealth, that prevents all of us from living the way our founders intended. Our founders gave us our collective views in the Declaration of Independence. And they wrote that we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And a small note, pursuit of happiness meant economic freedom, property rights. So we believe as Americans that our rights, including property rights and economic freedom, come from God and not from government. Governments are instituted to secure those rights. My vision for South Carolina is that we act as a shining city in the hill to the rest of the nation. As we start to see the rest of the nation crumble under questionable social policy, under near socialism, we stay true to our founding values of the constitutional republic that our founders gave us. And I want to be part of that. I want to back the governor up in standing true to those constitutional principles. and economic liberty. How do I plan to do this as Lieutenant Governor? Well, the first thing I talked about was presiding over Senate. I will preside over the Senate. I'll understand the laws that are brought before me. And I want to cut waste. I want to continue the work of my predecessor in ruling tax increases out of order. I want to look for other ways to cut the waste, to cut the fat that we know we can. Our state government's grown 50%, almost 50% in the past 5 years. That needs to stop. And we have things like, for instance, only 44 cents of the education dollar actually reaching the classroom. There is a lot of waste, a lot of bureaucracy that just needs to go. In addition to that, I think the focus of all of our leaders needs to be economic development and jobs. But, as Lieutenant Governor, I'm going to keep in mind that I am not the governor. The governor, whoever that may be, is going to come in with his or her own plan. I've got to be able to complement that plan as Lieutenant Governor. So my focus on my platform will be on Office on Aging issues, which is under my purview. I'm going to focus on getting retirees here, because every time we can bring a retiree couple to South Carolina from outside the state with their equity and their fixed pension income, that brings our state 3.5 jobs. And to give you an example of how this works, about a month ago, I was flying back from Fort Leavenworth. I had my 2 weeks of annual military training. As I said, I'm still Lieutenant Colonel in the Reserves. I was sitting next to a general officer, and she was talking about her own retirement. She had been in the service in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. She had served 30 years and had family in South Carolina through her husband's side. And yet she had planned to retire to North Carolina. Why? Because they don't tax her military income, her military retirement income. Now I want you to think about that. We're losing somebody who would have brought a 6-figure pension for life, all kinds of investments, a great boon to the state, knowledge for the governor to use for homeland defense issues. She was going somewhere else because of our unfair tax policies. We should not be taxing military retirement. And we need to find ways to cut that out. So we bring retirees here. And the great thing with military retirees is that they've already got fixed income, and they've also got federal health care insurance, so that they are never a drain in our economy. We need to bring those people here. We also need to take care of things like the taxation on disability below 100%. Right now, our wounded heroes from Iraq and Afghanistan, if their disability is less than 100%, they're taxed on it. That is wrong. It's unfair, and it keeps veterans out. So for retirees, for veterans, for elderly, we can bring economy and jobs. And oh, by the way, I'm heading to the Middle East this September on a trade delegation to find out how we can better serve our state. So these are all the ideas I have. I'm really excited about it. I look at the future of our state and the ability to work with the governor. And what I'd ask for is 3 things. I ask for your prayers first. Next, I ask for your support, financial support, volunteer support. I'm an outsider. I need your help. And lastly, I ask for your vote. Vote for me, Bill Connor, the next Lieutenant Governor of South Carolina. Thank you, and God bless you.